Hey friends, Racheal Cook here, business growth strategist for women entrepreneurs. And today I have an important question for you. How are you doing with your 2018 goals? Are you on track? Do you know if you are on track, or do you already feel like those goals that you wrote down, those big dreams you wrote down at the beginning of the year are already like not even happening? I would love to hear from you. So if you're joining me on Facebook Live today, or I'm also streaming on Instagram, let me know in the comments, do you feel like you're on track for your 2018 goals? This is such a challenging time of year, especially if you are like me. This tends to be a time of year where, summer is upon us. If you have children, then schools are being let out, our schedules are being shaken up, things start to slow down. And as an entrepreneur, it can be one of those times where if you're not paying attention, then you might find yourself in that summer slowdown where suddenly your business takes a back seat for the next 2 or 3 months. And by the time you hit August and September, by the time fall rolls around and you're ready to really go after those goals, you've lost out on this amazing opportunity in front of you to just make it happen. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Send me a comment. Are you on track, or do you feel like you're on track for your 2018 goals? So I know that for myself, those goals that you set at the beginning of the year, sometimes those shift. Sometimes you write down something at the beginning of the year and it changes as you go through the next few months. And I've already experienced this in my own business. So every time I get to June, I go through this process that I call a mid-year review. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you might have joined me for my free 5-day Plan Your Best Year Ever challenge. And in part of that, we do a full year in review. But I think it's so important every once in a while to just press pause, take a little time off, take a little CEO date for yourself, and check in with your business to see if you are on track to achieve your big goals. So today, I want to help you take a moment to press pause. And I actually created a little workbook for you. If you are joining me on Facebook Live, then all you have to do is type in the word download to get your mid-year review workbook. It'll go directly to you via Messenger. If you're following me on Instagram, or you find this video on YouTube or on the podcast, then head over to the show notes and you'll be able to get this download as well. And this is a process I take myself through and I take my clients through because it is so important to just press pause and actually reflect on your progress so far. If you don't get strategic at this point right now in the year, as we are in June, we're in month 6 of 12 for 2018. If you don't take time to get strategic, then you can lose several months of momentum. Even though summer is upon us, doesn't mean your business needs to stop. And I don't want you to feel like you're just missing out on a few months of getting the important things done in your business. You don't want to get through the summer feeling like the time just got away from you and you couldn't get on track. Because what happens if you do that? You end up setting the same exact goal next January. So we don't want to do that, right? We want to make sure that we're taking stock, we're looking at our priorities, we're seeing where we are on track, where we are off track, and how we can do things better to move ahead. So again, go ahead, if you're on Facebook Live with me, type in download and you should be able to get the free workbook right away so that you can follow along with me. And I'll walk you through this process because it will really help you to realign your business with your priorities and make sure, even if you're taking time off this summer, which I definitely am, even if your kids are home this summer, mine are too, that you still have your priorities realigned so that you know what you need to be doing in the time you do have for your business. So let's take a look at our mid-year review. Now, the first thing I do is a monthly review, and this is looking month by month for the first 6 months of the year. So yes, we are just starting June, month 6, but you're going to do a month to date for the first 6 months of the year. What we want to do is kind of get a play-by-play of how did those months go for you and your business. So there's 3 things I'm looking for in your monthly review. First, what is your total monthly revenue? What is that top line revenue money? How much money did you actually make that month? Second, what drove revenue? So where did that revenue come from? And then third, what were you focused on with your sales and marketing strategy? So again, the first 6 months, your monthly review, you'll probably only have January through May, and then you can just, whenever you're watching this, keep track through June, okay? But we want to be thinking about top line revenue first. Now, when I say top line revenue, I mean how much total revenue came into your business. I'm not talking about any fees that you might pay. I'm not talking about taxes. I'm not talking about what you pay yourself. I'm talking about the very top line, okay? The very top line of revenue. That's a really important metric to be tracking month by month. We want to know how much is actually flowing into your business. So once you have your top line revenue for January, February, March, April, May, we're working on June, right? Once you have that top line revenue, there's 2 follow-up pieces of information you really need to have. What drove revenue? This is so important, and you might need to take some time to look in your shopping cart, to look at your invoices that your clients have been paying. You actually want to break down, where's that revenue coming from? Where's that revenue coming from? So you might have a month where all of your revenue came from your one-on-one clients. You might have a month where 50% came from one-on-one clients and 50% came from a workshop you taught. Break it down into percentages of what products, programs, and services that you offer actually sold and where that revenue came from. This is so incredibly important to track because over the course of the year, you will probably see trends. And I have to say, friends, the 80-20 rule still applies in your revenue. It applies in your sales and marketing. 80% of the results will come from 20% of the effort, right? So when you're looking at sales, where is the majority of your sales coming from? This is such an important thing to consider because it lets you know where should you be putting your time and energy. And speaking of your time and energy, where was your focus during these last few months? What were you actually marketing and selling to your audience? So it's important to sit down and think about where you were spending your time and energy, where your focus was, because we want to make sure that one, the actions you were taking actually drove results. If you go back into, and I will look at my calendar, I will look at my email marketing system, I will look at anything that helps me figure out what was I actively promoting and where my time was spent. But let's say you spent all of February talking about something that ended up not driving results. Okay, we need to pay attention to that. That's a whole month that didn't get you where you wanted to go. But you might go back and realize, oh, I sent 4 emails in April and I ended up having an amazing month that month. So we want to actually know if your actions, if the things you were focused on in your marketing and your sales strategy actually drove the revenue, actually drove the bottom line in your business. So when you go through this, and I want you to just let me know, if you happen to be joining me, let me know in the chat. Did you see results from the actions you were taking? Any surprises on this idea of a year-to-date review? So I look through this, looking back every time this year, every June. I'm looking back on the first 5 or 6 months of the year. And I can already share with you some of the lessons that I have learned. And that comes once you finish the monthly review. We want to do the full kind of big picture year-to-date review. So again, if you're joining me live on Facebook, you can get the workbook, this workbook that I'm talking about, just by typing in download in the comments on Facebook. If you are joining me on Instagram, you can get this over on my Facebook Live, which is linked up in my bio. If you're on the podcast, you can go to the show notes. If you're on YouTube, you can go to the show notes. But this is what we are talking about, how to do a year in review. So we just did a month by month. What revenue did you bring in? What drove that revenue? Percentages of sales of products, programs, and services that you offer. And then what were you actually focused on? What was your marketing, sales, time, and energy going towards? Once we have that information, then we can start analyzing it. We can start doing a year to date and figure out what is working and what is not? And these are two very important questions that you need to be thinking about. What I often see with entrepreneurs is they don't take time to do this kind of review. And as a result, they feel like they're constantly spinning their wheels because they're not actually getting some good data about what is happening in their business. They're just guessing, right? And if you're just guessing your business strategy each and every month, you are not going to achieve those goals. So we want to be setting a plan, charting that plan, mapping it out, and then tracking if it worked. If you're not doing those three things, then you cannot effectively get to where you want to go in your business. So there are a couple key questions we want to ask now that we have this monthly review, now that we have this monthly breakdown of what happened in our business. And this will help you to tweak your plan moving forward. So the first big question, what has worked so far for you in 2018? Looking at the first 5-6 months of the year, what has worked? What offerings have been the most profitable? What marketing strategies have gotten the best results? Where has your time and energy been focused that led to new clients, new sales? You want to look over each and every month and maybe put a big star around, wow, that really worked for me, because these are things that you should do again. You don't have to recreate the wheel all the time. So I know in my business, some things that worked really well for us. One, we hosted our first ever CEO retreat, a full 1-day immersive in-person experience to help people create their 90-day plan. We hosted one in January in person here in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia. It was incredible. We had over 50 people signed up, 35 in person, 22-ish who joined us virtually. And it was amazing. I absolutely loved the energy. It got me all fired up and excited about the idea of reconnecting with my community and doing more things in person, which was really exciting. So that was something that worked really well. And I start thinking to myself, how can I rinse and repeat that? By the way, more dates are out. So if you're interested in joining me again, make sure you check out my website for the upcoming CEO retreats. I also want to ask myself what flopped. So what did not work as well as I had hoped? So this is about looking at what did not sell. Were you promoting something and you just didn't get the sales you were looking for? What marketing strategies did not work the way that you anticipated? You want to go back and actually do, we call this in my team, a postmortem review of any big campaigns we had or any promotions to figure out why didn't that work? Did I just not get in front of enough people? Was it not the right offer? So this is why tracking is so important. I often hear from entrepreneurs who maybe put an offer out in front of their audience and they just didn't get the sales they were anticipating, but they didn't track any real numbers. So let's say maybe you promoted a workshop or you promoted a group coaching program and you only got a couple of sales. You might think, oh, this did not work. People don't really want this. But if we were to dig a little bit deeper into those numbers, I would be asking you, how many people did this get in front of? How many people did this get in front of? Because if you got 3 or 4 sales, but it only went out in front of 100 people, that is amazing. That just means we need to get it in front of more people. So how can we do that? We want to make sure that we're doing the analysis. We're looking at the numbers, because if not, you might be thinking that something completely failed for your business. And really, there was another factor here that you're just not aware of. And you could use that information to do better next time. So you want to think about, if something didn't work, why did it not work? Before you decide to just cut it off the list, right? We want to think about, could we improve this? Could we make this better? Do we have the data to make sure that our assumption is correct? Now, in my own business, I can tell you one of the challenges we had, something that worked. We saw that the CEO retreat was a huge success. Something that didn't work, I announced one in April, and I only gave 3 weeks notice. In fact, I went on spring break with my family. We were gone for the whole week. And when I came back, I had just a couple of little things telling people about the next upcoming CEO retreat. It was a virtual one, which I thought would be easier, but I didn't give people time to block off a Friday to sit with me on Zoom. So I realized, okay, what didn't work about this? It wasn't that the offer wasn't good. I knew people loved it. I knew that everybody who attended last time really enjoyed it. The challenge was I did not give myself a long enough time frame. Data will help you make better decisions. So if something didn't work, you have to dig a little bit deeper and see if there's something else that could be causing that not to get the results you were hoping for. The next question to ask yourself is, what got in the way? And this is so important because data can only get us so far, right? We are entrepreneurs, which means we are the driving force behind our business. So if something didn't work, was there something else that got in your way? I can tell you guys, this year, we had so much snow in January. My kids were out of school so often. And not only did I have an in-person event here in Richmond, Virginia, which thankfully it did not snow that weekend, so people could come in from all over the country to be with me, but I had my kids home a lot in January. We were also opening enrollment to my online mastermind program, Sweet Spot Strategy. It was a lot of confusion in January. So there's no wonder when I look back on my month-to-month review that February, I was exhausted. I didn't promote anything. I basically showed up for my Facebook Live show and I was like, this is about all I can do. So February was a lot quieter month. So what got in my way? I forgot not to put so much in a single month. I forgot that it snows in January. And I need to consider that as I think about next year's plan. In fact, one of the things that I went and did with this information was I went into my calendar and said, January 2019, only one thing. I can only focus on one offer. I decided instead of having a CEO retreat in January, we would move it to December. So I didn't have too many things I was promoting at the same time. And also, so if people were traveling, we weren't fighting the weather, which is pretty challenging. So you want to be thinking about, what are these things that could be holding you back? Maybe you had crazy weather. Maybe you were like me and you got snowed in a lot this winter. Maybe you got hit with the flu and your whole family was sick for a couple of weeks. Maybe you had somebody on your team leave and you were sitting there trying to keep all the pieces of it together. You want to pay attention to this because these little things can really throw off your plan. And some of these things we can actually build in buffers in our plan to make sure that when those things happen again, you don't get so off course. So a mid-year review can really help you avoid making those mistakes. Now, the final question I want you to think about for this is, what is the leading metric that drives revenue for your business? What is the biggest driver of revenue for your business? Now, you're going to want to look through your numbers here. And again, I'm talking about numbers a lot, and we're going to be talking a lot more about tracking numbers and what you should be paying attention to this month, because this is a really important part of being the CEO, is making informed decisions, not just guessing about what is or isn't working in your business. So a leading metric is something that predicts a lagging metric. A lagging metric is revenue. Once that hits, there's nothing else you can do to impact how much revenue you have coming in your business. But if you know what predicts revenue, what drives revenue, then you can take actions now to make sure that you're doing the things that will move the needle for your business. So in my business, my email list is my biggest leading metric. And to get even more specific about that, my email list as a whole isn't even it. It is the people who sign up for one of my free masterclasses. That is the biggest predictor of any new revenue coming into my business. So I track that religiously. I make sure that every single week we're seeing, are we getting the numbers that we need into these master classes so that we can enroll people into our programs. Now, other businesses, your leading metric might be a little bit different. I run an online coaching and consultancy business. You might be very dependent on referrals in your business. So referrals would be your leading metric. That means you need to ask yourself, and you need to be tracking, how many referrals came into me this month? Because this, believe it or not, is something you have control over. If you're not getting enough referrals, if you realize I need 10 referrals in order to land 5 new clients each month, well, you can be tracking each and every week. Did I get 2 or 3 referrals? Did I get 2 or 3 referrals? And if you're not doing them, you can be proactive and reach out and do the action steps that will generate that leading metric, that will generate that activity and help you boost your revenue. So this is one of the most important things you can know about your business. What is your leading metric? What drives the lagging metric, your revenue? What is the indicator? And what are the action steps you can do to actually move that needle and get the results that you are looking for? So understanding these are so incredibly important. They're so incredibly important because without understanding what is driving your revenue, you can't make a plan. We can't actually make an informed plan about how we're going to get where we want to go for the second half of the year. So once you go through this, and you guys, again, type in download if you're watching me on the Facebook Live. If you're watching me on Instagram, head over to my Facebook page. The link is in my bio, and that way you can get this download and do your mid-year review. Once you go through this, you can decide, am I on or off track for my goals this year? You might decide your goal has changed, and that's totally okay. But you want to ask yourself, am I on or off track? And you want to figure out what is the gap in order to hit your end of the year goal. So I know a lot of us set a revenue goal for the year. And I want you to really think about this, looking at your year-to-date revenue. Like go into your PayPal or your FreshBooks or my case Samcart and figure out how much revenue has come into my business and what is the gap. How much additional revenue do I need to generate in order to hit my revenue goal? This is such an important thing to know because now I can make a plan based on real numbers, based on real information. So once I have that revenue goal, I can start reverse engineering it, right? So let's say you have $50,000 left to make this year. Your goal was 6 figures. You made just about 50,000 so far this year, and 50,000 is the remainder that you're trying to make up this year. At this point, are you on track? And then what do you need to do to continue getting another 50K this year, especially if summer is going to impact your business? Now, let's say that your goal is to make $50,000 this year, but you didn't hit that goal yet. Let's say your goal was to make $50,000 this year. You made $20,000. So now you still have $30,000 left to make. You should have been making closer to $25,000 by the end of this month. So how are you going to make up that gap, that extra $5K that would have put you on track to your revenue goal? Maybe that means you need to take time right now this month to sign an extra client or two. Maybe it means you need to put together a promotion for your products, programs, or services to make sure you don't fall further behind to reaching that goal. So once you know the gap, what you need to make between June and end of December to achieve your yearly revenue goal, you can also figure out, do I need to catch up? Is there missing revenue here that I need to account for, that I need to figure out how to make up? Do you need to adjust your plan to do that catch up? So what can you do to close that gap? And if you're in the situation where you're closing that gap, I want you to know, like, this is totally normal. We all go through this. We all go through months where we are a little short of our revenue goal. Revenue is never something that is like consistent across the board unless you run a retainer-based business model where you're just billing out the same number of clients all the time. For a lot of us, revenue is going to ebb and flow a little bit, and that's why you have to track it. You have to know what is going on in your business. And when you have those down months, you have to have the game plan in place in order to make up that revenue, in order to close the gap and get back on track with your revenue goal. So once you have this information, you know the gap, you know how much revenue you need to make through the end of the year. Now we can actually map out what we're going to do for the remainder of 2018. And I want you to use, again, this mid-year review. Type download if you're on Facebook Live and you'll get the workbook. But this is where we want to document our plan for the second half of 2018. And what I want you to think about is, we don't want to make the same mistakes again. We want to make sure we're focusing our time and energy on what actually is working and driving results for your business. So one thing I really want you to think about as you're planning the second half of your year, as you're putting in what you're going to be doing July, August, September, October, November, December, is that you don't have to recreate the wheel. If something worked earlier this year, it will likely work again. And I see so many entrepreneurs creating more work and more stress for themselves because they are constantly starting over. They're constantly trying brand new marketing strategies, brand new sales strategies, creating brand new offerings, when instead they could take something they've already sold, an existing product, program, or service, and just offer it again. So if you watch my business, you know that I offer the same things again and again and again. My signature program is Sweet Spot Strategy, and I have been running it since 2011. We are always making the program better, and I'm always growing it with new, amazing students. So this is how you actually build an asset for your business. You create it and then put it to work for you instead of constantly creating new things that just kind of sit on a shelf and don't generate any revenue for your business. So what worked in the first 6 months of the year that you can actually rinse and repeat in the next 6 months? This is going to be so important. So as you go through the end of the year plan, what you want to map out for each and every month is first, what are you selling this month? What product, program, or service are you focused on? This is so important because if you are not actively offering people your products, programs, and services, chances are you are not seeing clients. You are not seeing sales. So you want to have a plan for where your time and energy is going to be. You want to know what you're focused on each and every month so you can put that energy behind it and get the impact, get the results you're looking for with the least amount of effort. So first thing you got to know about each month, the rest of the year, what are you selling? What product, program, or service are you selling? Second, how are you marketing that offer? How do you plan to attract new people to that offer? How do you plan to engage them and start this conversation and then help them decide if this is a perfect fit for them? So this is exactly what I do in my business all the time. I figure out my offer, I figure out what I'm selling for that particular month, and then I map out my marketing strategy to sell that offer, to get people excited and fired up about that particular offer. So I have a game plan and I know exactly what I'm going to be talking to my community about. I know what I'm going to be talking about on this Facebook Live. I know what I'm going to be sending out via emails. I know what my Facebook ads are going to be focused on because I make sure each month that my marketing strategy is aligned with what I am offering. So this is one of the things that you want to have a game plan for. And the third part of this is, how are you actually selling this to people? You have a goal. I want to sell X number of private clients, or I want to enroll X number of people into this program. But how are you getting them into it? You have to decide how you are extending that invitation. If you're hoping that they're going to click around on your website and find it, you will be hoping for a very long time. It does not work very well. What does work is for you to decide right up front, how are you going to be inviting people into that program? So if you were to join one of my master classes, for example, you know that once you join a master class that I offer, you're going to be invited into that program at the end of the master class and through an email follow-up. Pretty simple, right? Maybe for you, you're going to be using one-on-one conversations. You're going to be focusing all your marketing on getting people on the phone or on Skype or on Zoom so that you can have conversations and invite them to take that next step. So you want to ask yourself these questions for each of the next 6 months. What am I focused on selling? What product, program, or service am I offering? How am I marketing that? How am I getting my community excited about it, making sure they know about it, making sure that we have been talking about it for a while? And then third, how am I selling it? You having conversations, you doing a webinar, you just doing an email promotion? How are you actually inviting them into the next step? So mapping this out will make your year so much easier. And because you have done this year in review that we've been walking through, it will make it easier to rinse and repeat and avoid the mistakes you might have made at the beginning of the year. So I hope this is helpful for you to think about. I would love to hear from you. Is this helpful to go through and do this year in review? It really only takes maybe 15-20 minutes to do, but then you have something you can use to plan the remainder of the year and make sure you're spending your time and energy on the things that drive revenue. So if you like today's show, the next few episodes of Uncomplicate Your Business, we are going to be talking about more CEO level strategies to ensure that you are spending your time and energy as the CEO of your business on the things that actually drive results. So I hope you're excited, and I hope you'll continue to join me for this month's Facebook Live shows, Uncomplicate Your Business. Thanks so much for joining me today. I can't wait to hear from you. If this was helpful, make sure you leave a comment for me and I will circle back to answer those. But I will talk to you next week when we dive into how to do your CEO date. Okay, take care.